So thanks so much for coming on, because yes, as you say, you're quite busy with the election coming up, and you guys have invested tens of millions of dollars in state legislature races this year. Tell me about how that came to be, and where some of your areas of focus are.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the good news is a lot of people on our side of the political spectrum have woken up to the threat that is posed by right-wing legislatures. One of the big catalysts, obviously, is the Dobbs decision, which really hammered home for a lot of people that who you send to your state capital is just so incredibly important, because you have, a woman living, on the border between Minnesota and North Dakota. On one side of that border, on one side of the Red River, she has way more rights than on the other side. And in fact, in Arizona, which is one state I want to really go in a little more deeply, a court there recently reinstituted a territorial law, a law that predates the gunfight at the OK Corral that banned all abortions in the state. And so you're really seeing just how regressive some of these right-wing state legislatures can be. And the other thing that's really woken people up to the threat is there's a Supreme Court case coming out. It's going to be argued over and decided over the next year, called Moore v. Harper. And the Supreme Court might actually hold that state legislatures basically have the power to throw out election results. Mm-hmm. And it's just an absolutely terrifying thing for the future of representative democracy in America. And so I think I'm lucky to work at an organization that's really been able to wake people up to this threat. But we are going up against really a right-wing machine that has really come to dominate state politics, that has been built up over decades, and we're kind of just starting from going from crawl to run. It can be difficult, and so we're doing our best, but we are going up against just a very entrenched right wing powers, and we're also going up against kind of the headwinds from midterm, where we're for the most part working for a party that occupies the White House. And so, but there are still a number of states that I really want to focus on. And the first is really Arizona. And so, Emma, have you been paying attention to what's been going on with the Arizona legislature at all?
Yeah, a little bit. And from what I've read, you just really need to flip one seat, right, for this for this to work out. Tell us about some of the efforts there.
Well, and so in Arizona too, it's a state where the vast majority of state legislative candidates that of right-wing ones have said that they're willing to throw out the results of the next election. It's a really frightening moment. But there are a few that have either equivocated and even one who said, listen, Biden won, get over it. And so that's a state where, really, obviously flipping one seat, breaking right-wing control would be huge, but really everything we can do there to prevent kind of an anti-democracy majority from taking hold is really critical. And there's actually one race in particular that we are really focusing on right now. It was supposed to be a safe Democratic seat. It was an open seat, and the guy who won the primary, around the time when he won the primary, he took a job as a lobbyist for a local utility company, and then resigned without telling anyone on the ground. And so Democrats were left, and he's the only one on the ballot. And under Arizona law, he stays on the ballot. But he can't, none of the votes for him count. And so whoever wins the most write-ins wins the election. Now, this all happened in the last few weeks. And so really kind of, you can draw your own conclusions from this man's behavior. And so right now we are basically trying to start up from scratch to help the candidate Ava Diaz, who's running as a write-in there. Again, she, a month ago was, just kind of a concerned citizen in the district. And now she, is the de facto Democratic nominee, but we need to really fund a really critical write-in campaign because this guy who left to become a lobbyist really left us high and dry. And because of the campaign finance rules, we might be a well-funded organization, but, she can only accept, money in small increments. So that's really the good race that we're focusing on right now. So if you want to check us out at statesproject.org or check me out on Twitter, we're really trying to direct people to help her out right now. So that's the big focus right now is in Arizona and that race really.
Well, I mean, how do you organize from your perspective a write-in campaign that seems to present a level of logistical challenges that are fairly unique for this kind of effort on behalf of a state race.
So we actually, we did a lot of research on this. It's like, what goes into a successful write-in campaign. And it ultimately just comes down to having resources, because you really, Arizona, it's a state where you have a really heavy mail-in balloting, not as much election day. And an election day write-in campaign is actually a little easier because people are going to the polling place. You can stand outside being like, hey, Espinosa's off the ballot, please write for this. But now, we really have to go out to, we have to send mail, we have to advertise, we have to do all those things to kind of try to reach people in this district that, hey, you can't vote for Espinosa. If you vote for Espinosa, your vote gets thrown away. Meanwhile, all the Republicans in the district are going to write in a Republican candidate. And so we really need to make sure that everyone who's paying attention can consolidate behind Ava Diaz. And she just needs the resources to get that message out.
Well, we're going to have a link to all of this in the podcast description and in the YouTube descriptions as well. So hopefully if you guys, if you're in Arizona or if you just want to help out, you can check those links out as well. Let's turn though to Michigan and Pennsylvania, because those are also really important potential pickups for flips of state legislatures. Pennsylvania, notorious due to their attempts to overturn the results from their state in the 2020 presidential election. So talk a bit about Pennsylvania, because it's extreme. There's also a gubernatorial election happening at the same time and a Senate election happening at the same time. So turnout is going to likely be quite high. What are you seeing? Does that benefit have you seen some positive signs, negative signs of what's happening in Pennsylvania in the state legislature?
Yeah, well, one great thing in Pennsylvania that we've seen this cycle is we've actually been able to run a program with the House Democrats there, where we are basically funding candidates based on how much they knock on doors. And so, because really, if you think about a state legislative candidate in Pennsylvania, a state house district has 60,000 people in it, so maybe about half as many voters. And if you think about kind of who you need to reach and kind of who those swing voters are, it's actually a pretty small number of voters. And if the candidate can talk to each of them individually, or as many as possible, that's huge, because nothing will persuade someone more than actually being able to talk to the person that they've seen on the ballot, or having that person in their in their house. And so it's been great to see a lot of candidates in really swingy seats. Really, they have just been pounding the pavement. They've been going door to door, doing their best to try and kind of really let people know the stakes here. Because like you said, there's a very far right, candidate for governor in Pennsylvania right now. And, he's behind in the polls. But, he really kind of highlights where that state party is headed. And for people who are worried about 2024, I do have some good news there, where in Pennsylvania, lawmakers can be inaugurated before the Electoral College casts its votes. And so even if we kind of fall short in Pennsylvania this year, and we have fair maps, a majority of House districts went to Biden. So we could win a majority in Pennsylvania in a good year. But even if we fall a little short, we still should make gains. It's a 12-seat gap right now that we have to make up. And also we can kind of finish the job in 2024 in time to basically save the election in Pennsylvania. And so, in Pennsylvania, I would, again, I don't want to guarantee a majority there, because, again, Democrats occupy the White House and there are those headwinds, but I think there are fair maps there for the first time in decades. And hopefully that'll set us up to make some gains heading into 2024.
With the Supreme Court case that's being heard about giving more power to state legislatures to determine how votes are counted in the Electoral College, what would that scenario look like if the Supreme Court were to side with conservatives, which it seems likely that they will, in terms of what if that was in place in 2020? What would have happened in Pennsylvania?
It's really frightening. So, in Pennsylvania, the Speaker of the House, for example, he sent a letter to Mike Pence asking him to throw out Pennsylvania's electoral votes. You could imagine in Pennsylvania, in kind of the month following the election, him, trying to basically gather the legislature together and getting, so it's 203 seats in the House, so 102 votes to throw out there are, I think, 113 Republicans. So he could afford some defections and still do that. And then similarly, the Republican leader in the state Senate signed an amicus brief on that very case that you cited. So I think that shows where the state Senate would be going. And again, even though you have a Democratic governor there, even though you have a Democrat leading the gubernatorial election polling in 2022, basically, if the Supreme Court adopts this doctrine, that wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter what the state Supreme Court said either. Basically, what state legislatures are arguing is that they get to, they have the green lantern for politics. They can do whatever they want.
It really is terrifying, especially given the stranglehold that the Republicans have had over state legislatures over the past few decades. But it got even so much worse with the rise of the Tea Party and the gerrymandering that came from that. Let's turn to Michigan, because that's another state where there's a governor's race as well. But the fact that, Michigan seems a lot bluer to me than is represented in their state legislature. What's it like on the ground there right now?
Yeah, I mean, so Michigan Senate's probably our best chance to flip a chamber this cycle, or definitely it's up there. And that's because
or the Senate. I keep saying legislature, but I mean, right?
Well,
sorry.
I mean,
Yes, but to be more specific, yeah.
And then that's because in Michigan in 2018, voters passed an initiative that provided for an independent redistricting commission. So, for decades, we've had to run on gerrymandered districts there. In fact, in the 2010s, in the state house, Democrats won a majority of votes every year except for one, but they never held a majority because of gerrymander. And so that kind of shows you we have this great opportunity now that we finally have fair districts in Michigan. And actually, in the Senate, the maps are a little fairer than they are on the House side, and so it's a really exciting opportunity. And then the Atlantic actually did an article on the Michigan Senate, state Senate elections, and kind of what they mean for democracy. And someone from the state Republican Party, there were quotes from people saying, we're really worried that Republicans are gonna throw out the votes and then cast electoral votes for the party who loses. And he's like, oh, that's just desperation. Democrats are they're clinging to this, and this is ridiculous. But then they asked him to say, well, are you gonna say that you're gonna respect the 2024 presidential vote in the state? And he wouldn't do it. And so. They're trying to have it. They're talking out both sides of their mouth. They're trying to have it both ways. They're trying to say that, this is just scaremongering. This would never happen. But then they're not saying that they would never do it. And so it's frightening. But, again, and in Michigan, too, obviously the governor who's elected on a ticket with the lieutenant governor is favored to win re-election. And then so even if we can just kind of get to a tie in the Senate, that means that the lieutenant governor would break ties, and so we would hopefully, again, forestall the worst there. And again, and if we can flip the entire legislature, we could actually do some real good in Michigan. So Michigan's a state that I think we're feeling pretty bullish on, especially on the Senate side.
How about the some of the other states that you're looking at? I think Maine is one of them, and Nevada is always just throwing everything at you. It's difficult to get, I feel like, some sort of toehold in what's happening in Nevada, but I'm asking you to provide us with some context.
Maine, I think Maine really highlights kind of what you can do through state legislatures as a good thing. For example, you looked at the IRA negotiations from over the summer. They tried to get in price cap on insulin for all diabetics, not just people who are on Medicare, and it failed. But in Maine, they were able to get one for everyone. So now the price of insulin is capped for everyone in Maine. And and they were able to do that because we helped flip the legislature in 2018. And now kind of the bombastic former Republican governor Paul LePage, who kind of like to think of himself as Trump before Trump, is trying to come back. And there's a risk that he could, and the maps, especially in the Maine state House, a majority of districts went for Trump in 2016. So there's a risk that we could lose the Maine House. So, we want to make sure that we defend the gains that we've made up in Maine over the past few years. And then Nevada, again, it's a state where, you've seen over the past 4 years kind of a lot of laws passed that really improve the lives of the people that live there. But you're facing a potential right-wing wave there as well. And so, we're trying to help, some people. And a lot of also right-wing candidates in swing districts there. And the Nevada Independent has done a lot of reporting on this. have really supported, the end of democracy. There you have, we've endorsed people running against a guy who ran as the Stop the Steal candidate in his primary. Another one's running against someone who shared a link to 2,000 Mules and said everyone should check it out. Yeah, and these are candidates running in these aren't kind of like the far right in the Margie Taylor Greene districts in that state. These are people running in swing districts, and so again we just need to kind of get the word out there that you have really high stakes in these swing state elections, not just kind of them siding with people who believe these crazy things. The people in these swing seats actually believe these crazy things. You can defeat them, and just getting that word out.
Lastly, how have you guys over at Future Now and the States Project? How have you felt that the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, which is supposed to be doing focusing on this as well, how have they worked? Have they been, I don't know, doing a good job? Have you guys been filling certain gaps for them? I mean, what has their investment looked like, especially compared to yours?
Yeah, they're partners of ours. We work together well with them. I think, I have a lot of respect, especially for their leadership and Jessica Post. And I think what they've actually done a really good job, is they have been out there trying to get national Democrats as well to pay more attention to state legislatures. And, I think it's, you don't irrigate the desert with just one hose. And I think we're playing a role, and they play a huge role. Recently, Joe Biden sent out an email to the huge lists saying people, hey, state legislatures are really important. We need your help in funding those. And I think the DLCC, they probably play a pretty crucial role in getting that out there. So, we see them as partners. And again, anyone out in this space who looks at kind of the crowded political spaces, I really want to make a difference in state legislatures. Even if it's not through us, we're just so happy that people are paying attention and they care and they're trying to make a difference. And we respect the people at the DLCC so much for trying to do that. And we think of them as great partners. That's
good to hear. That's good to hear for sure. Well, Aaron Kleinman, Director of Research for the States Project at Future Now. Pay attention to your damn state legislatures, please, and go to the website. We'll put the link in the description to see.
Statesproject.org. Check it out, people. Emma, thanks so much for having me on. Go Big Blue.
Of course. Yes, exactly. Right. I don't see many wins left on that schedule, but I'm enjoying the season regardless. We'll see. I
don't know if I'm going to get up too early to watch that Packers game, but
I have a mental disorder, so I will be up at 9 watching the pregame and the stupid London game where Davis Webb, the third string quarterback, is likely to be starting. Anyway.
All right.
See you later, Aaron. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
All right. With that said, we're going to wrap up the free hour, the first part of this program, and head into the fun half where we will be taking your calls and reading your IMs. The number is 646-257-3920, so you can call in there.